Hello everyone, welcome back to Ashish Malik IAS Academy. So this is our last lecture on NCERT Crash Course series on Polity, class 12. And before moving forward, let me tell you, if any one of you want to get an Academy Plus subscription, then use this referral code Ashish Malik 10 to avail 10% discount on your subscription fee. So do not forget to use this referral code for 10% additional discount on your subscription fee for Plus. And apart from this, there are two current affair books by Ashish Malik sir, which is Disha 365 Current Affairs Analysis Volume 1 and Volume 2. These are the latest bestseller books. They are also available on Amazon as and on Google Play Books. So you can also go and check these books there. A sample copy is also available on Google Play Books of Volume 1 with 10 free topics. So you can go and check the quality of the book there. And if you want to buy these books, the link is given below in the description box. Apart from these books, one more book has been recently launched, which is 1000 Most Probable MCQs with additional 500 previous year questions. So in this book, you are getting 1500 more questions for your preliminary examination. You can get command on the different types of questions, the level of difficulty. UPSC can ask questions to you. So make sure you buy all the three books, and the link is given below in the description box for all three books. And if any one of you wants to watch my previous lectures, then you can go to these playlists and watch my previous lectures. I have recently made a video on India and Pakistan's relations, basically the new map which has been revealed or unveiled by Pakistan, new political map under which it has claimed entire part of Jammu and Kashmir's territory and a part of Gujarat state, which is territory of Junagadh. So make sure you go through that particular video also. So let us start our today's discussion. We have already talked about the concept of globalization, how the globalization is defined, what are the causes of globalization, and what are its political consequences. So we have talked about three aspects under the political consequences. One was erosion of state capacity, another was that it continues to play its essential functions, and another was that state received a boost as a consequence of globalization. Now, next topic which we are going to cover is economic consequences of globalization. Now, first of all, when we talk about economics or economy in international relations or in world politics, generally what we imagine is the functions of WTO and IMF. But when we talk about consequences of globalization in economic perspective, then it is much more than the role played by international institutions like IMF and World Bank. Basically, the economic consequences of globalization deals with the greater economic flows. Now, what does the IMF and WTO do in international politics? They basically help in more and more trade between different countries. Now, and during or in the era of globalization, there are usually it involves greater economic flows between different countries of the world. Some of this economic flow, is voluntarily, some of this is unvoluntarily or forced by international institutions or powerful countries like USA does. Now, there under the as the consequences of globalization, as the commodities, capital, people, and ideas used to travel from one region or one country to another under globalization with a wider scale and much more speed. So, under globalization, the restrictions which countries used to impose on their imports has been reduced. Specifically, when India has gone through the IMF LPG reforms in 1991, then IMF had put a condition on India that India has to reduce its restriction on imports. It has to reduce its tariffs, which India used to import on imports. Restrictions on movement of capital has also reduced. Now the rich countries can invest their money in the country other than their own, in developing countries, in underdeveloped countries, where they might get more in returns, better returns. Now, India is one of the major destination for countries for FDI. India is getting huge foreign direct investment in the era of globalization. Now, globalization has also led to the flow of ideas, specifically with the spread of internet. Now, now the flow of capital, ideas, people is not uniform between different countries. The developed countries, the rich countries, or the Western world basically have carefully guarded their borders with visa policies. For example, USA does. It very frequently USA changes its visa policy to restrict immigration to its country so that the citizens of another country would not come and take jobs of their citizens. So developed countries do so. And also same set of policies might not lead to same results everywhere. Economic globalization also has resulted or created an intense division of opinion in the world. Many of them believe that economic globalization or globalization has not resulted or benefited everyone equally. It has benefited only small section of society, small section of people, while impoverishing those who were dependent on government specifically for welfare programs, because now during globalization, under globalization, state cannot go for welfare measures, and the poor people who were dependent on their government are now have now become more impoverished. Some say that globalization means recolonization. Countries has or world has entered into the era of neocolonialism, under which countries do not directly control the territories of the country by force, but they do so with the help of trade. So they are calling it as the recolonization. Now, many of the advocates of globalization said that ec- economic globalization results in greater economic growth. Everybody is getting benefit out of it, and it is argued that greater economic it generates greater economic growth, well-being of a larger section when the when there is deregulation, when government would go for deregulation of industries or sectors under it, it would result in greater economic growth and it would benefit larger population. It has been also argued that greater trade among different countries would allow them to produce in what produce those products in which they have specialization. It would result in more and more specialization, because now the countries would produce those and in which they are best they can do, and they will import those products which they could not produce themselves, and it would benefit the whole world. Now another consequence of globalization is cultural consequence. Under cultural consequence, there are basically two arguments given by the experts that globalization results in cultural homogenization, and another argument is that it results in cultural heterogenization. Now, what is cultural homogenization? Under the era of globalization, now you can yourself see in India, people now used to wear Western clothes, and it is considered, the people of older generation considered this cultural effect that it leads to the fear that this process poses a threat to our culture or the cultures worldwide in the world, because we are now following only one culture which is dominant culture of one country, and it does so because globalization leads to rise of uniform culture and what is we known as cultural homogenization. Now cultural homogenization means uniform culture, and this rise of uniform culture does not mean emergence of global culture. What we mean by uniform culture is basically the imposition of Western culture on the rest of the world. What we used to eat nowadays. Now you have heard about the concept of McDonaldization. Now it is also said, or the argument is given by experts, that the countries where the retail chains of McDonald's outlets of McDonald's are present, where McDonald's had set up its outlets, those countries would not go for war against each other, never ever in their future. So, this argument has been given by the experts. And this is what we call the cultural homogenization, that the people in their clothes, in their living style, how they use, what they used to eat, what they used to wear, everything has become uniform. The jeans which you wear nowadays, the trousers, jeans, t-shirts, shirts, tops, all these are the given or influenced by Western culture. And that's what we call as cultural homogenization, that the people of the world are now following a uniform culture. Everyone is eating same things, everyone is wearing same kinds of clothes. And this leads to the shrinking of rich culture, which is a threat. However, it also leads to modification of our culture. The second concept under cultural consequences is that this globalization also leads to modification of culture. It results in availability of more choices to the people. For example, if we talk about food, then if you now you are eating burgers, then you cannot replace your traditional food, for example, masala dosa or rava idli. You cannot replace them with the burger because the taste between the two is completely different. So it has resulted, globalization has given you more choice in front of you for food. Similar is for the clothes. For example, if you want to wear a blue jeans, that you can go for a khadi kurta, which is indigenous cloth, which has been made handmade cloth, with it has been manufactured in India. So this has given a this has given a result to a new kind of culture, mix of culture, which we call as cultural heterogenization. So globalization has at one time resulted in homogeneity, but at the same time it has resulted in cultural heterogenization, where we are now getting more and more choices and a mixed kind of culture, and it would not particularly threaten the rich culture of our world. Now, let us see India and globalization. Now, initially, when India became independent, it had its experience of British imperialism, how foreign countries came and exploited our country for approximately 200 years. So, India, after it becoming independent, it followed protectionist policy. India avoided to go for trade with any country. Only essential commodities were imported. But India was uh, emphasizing on self-reliance. India wants to produce things which it could produce within its territory and avoided to import them from outside countries. But later on, it resulted in sluggish growth rate, due to which we had to go for LPG reforms, which you might have covered, or the Arnav sir have covered these reforms under his NCRT crash course of economy. So you can go to watch these reforms in detail there, the economic perspective. And after these reforms, India has started or entered the era of globalization. Now, let us see resistance to globalization. Now, there are two types of critics, leftist critic and rightist critic. They argue why we should not go for globalization. Leftist, the people or supporters of leftist ideology, they say that globalization makes rich more richer and poor more poorer. It widens the gap between rich and poor in the world. It also results in weakening of state, which we have argued in our political consequences. So these arguments are given by leftist people who are following leftist ideology, and they say that we should resist globalization. We should not go for globalization. The people who follow rightist ideology, they say they also politically they are also fearful that it might result in weakening of state. Economically, they want to return to self-reliant India or self-reliance for from whichever country they are belonging to. And they also believe that globalization threatens the age-old values, basically the cultural consequence which we have talked about. So these are the arguments given by the experts or the people why we should go for resistance to globalization. And similar arguments are given by India also, and this has resulted in numerous anti-globalization movements across the global networks. Now, when we talk about India and resistance to globalization, in India also numerous parties or trade unions, industrial workers have participated in movements against globalization, resistance. They have resisted globalization. Some people or people belonging to political right parties, they object various cultural influence. Basically, the right people of following rightist ideology oppose cultural influence more extensively. For example, they oppose the availability of foreign channels, foreign TV channels provided by our cable network providers. They oppose celebration of Valentine's Day, the westernization of dresses, dress taste of girl student per se in school and colleges. So all these are objected by the people following right ideology. So this is all about globalization and its consequences. With this, we are now finally winding up this course of NCRT Crash Course. Thank you very much. If you have any doubt, you can comment in the comment section. Thank you, and please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.